I'm sure we've all experienced this at some point. So you go and find a piece of clothing that looks really good on a model or a mannequin, so you decide to go try it on, or you simply add to cart if you're shopping online. Either way, when you finally wear the piece of clothing for the first time, you realize that the clothing looks terrible on you. Well, why is that? Variations in appearance can have a huge impact on how clothing looks on you, and there is a set of guidelines that can help a person to choose clothing that complement their features. After all, clothing plays a huge role in a person's expressed identity. So naturally, people want to wear clothes that express their qualities and make themselves look pleasing to the eye. With that being said, these guidelines are just a suggestion. If you find clothing that you really like, even if they go against these guidelines, that's okay. The whole goal is to be able to enjoy the things that you wear. For some people, though, that can be a huge struggle. And I personally have experiences with this. I wasted so much money on clothes that I end up only wearing once because I really dislike the way they look on me. But now with this information, I'm able to easily identify clothing that would suit myself and others as well without even trying them on. So, for each of the aspects of a person's physical appearance, I'm going to talk about the variations among them and then talk about how I personally take advantage of this information to help me choose the right kind of clothing. So these aspects will be my upper versus lower body proportions, body shape, and finally skin undertones. Well, first of all, what is this upper lower body proportions? Upper lower body proportions is typically, upper body is typically the top of my head to the waist, and lower body is the waistline down to my feet. So the variations can come like this. Some people might have a longer upper body compared to their lower. Some people might have a longer lower body in comparison to their upper body. For me, I am that example. Watch this. Right. So you can see that the top of my head only really reaches about a little bit further past my knees. So I'm clearly that example. So how do I choose clothing based on this information? Well, one of the things I can do is I can choose clothing that makes my waistline appear lower than it really is. In this case, I'd be wearing a longer top or maybe low-waisted bottoms. Although personally, I still really like my high-waisted bottoms just because of modesty preferences, but that's just an example of why these guidelines don't need to be strictly followed. Also, another thing I could do is I could wear these rounded pants. So that's what these are. These are called balloon pants. They kind of are curved like this. I know a lot of people, they wear straight pants or they wear flares to lengthen the look of their legs. So for me, I'm doing the opposite. I'm wearing these rounded shaped pants that actually will shrink the look of my lower body. So these are some ways that I can use clothing to fix these proportions. Besides length, width is also pretty important too. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is body shape. So what are these body shapes about? So these are determined based on the width of your shoulders, your waist, and your hips. The ideal body shapes are typically the rectangle and the hourglass. Rectangle just means equal proportions of everything, and hourglass is the same except there's a smaller waist. The body shapes that typically cause problems with certain clothing include the triangle, the inverted triangle, and the round shape. So the triangle shape just means that your lower body is wider than your upper, and the inverted triangle is the same but inverted. And the round shape just means you have equal shoulders and hips, but your waist might be a little fuller. So what can we do about the body shapes? So for me, I have a very wide upper body and maybe a more smaller lower body. So for me, I'm an inverted triangle. One of the things I like to do is when I shop for tops, I look at the neckline. So this one is a square neckline. I could also wear a halter neckline or even just a straight across neckline that's seen in tube tops. So what this does is it creates the illusion here, since the end of the clothing here to my shoulder looks really small, it kind of creates that illusion that the shoulders are not as wide as they really are. That's how necklines can kind of help make my shoulders look more narrow than they really are. Another thing I can do is I can wear tops where the sleeves flare out from the shoulders. So they kind of go out like this. Not puffy sleeves like the one I'm wearing, but the ones that really flare from the bottom. That can also create the illusion of a smaller upper body. Now that we've discussed length and width, now let's get into color. Color can get really complicated because people will get into seasonal color palettes. I'm just going to be talking about skin undertones. So what are these undertones? Some people have a more warmer undertone. That just means they have a more orangish color in their skin. For me, I'm pretty orangish, so I do have a warmer undertone. Some people have a cooler undertone, which just means they have a more reddish look in their skin. There's a third category of people who have a very neutral undertone. We can consider them to have more of like an olive complexion. So what can we do about this information? Since I'm warm toned, jewelry can have a huge impact on how it looks on me. So here I have a golden ring here and a silver. I'm going to be using a larger one for the silver and my real one, but you can see that the silver, it creates kind of this sharp contrast between the color and the rest of my skin. What it does is it kind of distracts from my physical features, which is not a good thing. And the same thing happens when I wear cool and bright colors. It kind of washes my skin out. So that's why I would wear gold jewelry, and I'd also wear warm and muted colors that really go with my skin and help me to highlight the features of my face instead. So today we've talked about how all of these physical features have an impact on how they look on us, as well as how we can adjust the clothing we wear to complement these features. They include the upper lower body proportions, body shape, and skin undertone. That's why it's so important to consider these various physical features of our appearance to really find what works best for us. After all, clothes are meant to fit you. If instead of sticking with these ill-fitting clothes that you regret buying, try some of these principles, and then you'll find clothing that actually complements your features and makes you want to actually wear them.